Chapter 3. Popara the Hut.
Yuba Sanuba Choramond,
said the hut factorum, looking at the trio over the top of a heavy set of data goggles. At the hut's side, a protocol droid made of greenish metal translated.
You said you would be coming alone,
It said in a neutral voice, lacking inflection.
Do the Hutts consider members of one's entourage as independent beings?
Countered Mander, his face an unconcerned mask. He had reviewed the available volumes on Hutt customs and society before he had left Yavin 4.
Or are they merely extensions of one's own will?
The factorum had a greenish cast to its flesh, and its long lashes batted at Reen, Mander, and Eddie. A female, realized Mander, or rather a Hutt in female state. The great slug-like creatures could be either gender and manifested secondary sexual traits differently throughout their lives. The idea of calling one male or female was usually left to the observer. The Hutts themselves seemed to be unconcerned about whether they were male or female at any moment. Indeed, many of their titles, such as Lorda or Master, were considered gender-neutral. This one's head seemed to be narrower and taller than most as well, looking more like a spear point than a flattened triangle. She continued, speaking in the sibilant tongue of Huttese.
Indeed, Chuba Shadow Futu Stuka de Planeto.
and you are the previous Jedi's replacement in the negotiations.
Translated, the droid, an H-Series 3PO unit. The Hutt's lackadaisical manner indicated that she didn't care if he was or not.
I was his teacher,
said Mander,
and I came to finish the task he was assigned.
The factorum punched a few toggles on her pad, then adjusted her data goggles up over her eyes. The goggles' oversized lenses made her eyes look huge, even for a Hutt. Surprisingly, the next time she spoke, it was in basic, albeit in a halting fashion that communicated nothing so much as distaste for doing so, as if the words were bitter in her mouth.
I am Vargo Gajali. I am Mighty Popara's Chief Advisor, Major Domo and Factotum. Benevolent Popara is very busy, so most of your dealing will be with me. Treat me with the respect that wise Popara has earned.
Of course,
said Mander, and the Hutt turned and slithered toward the shuttle. Mander turned to the others and was struck by the scowls they both wore.
You can still stay behind,
he suggested.
I would not miss this for all the spice on Ryloth,
said Rian.
Just remember, let me do the talking.
Mander said.
Later, I will ask about your impressions.
They boarded the ship, and Mander watched the jade-green 3PO unit organizing the stowage of supplies. Rantweed clusters, pickled zog, Noric loaves, and many kegs of Kashyyyk ale. The last was interesting, even in the larder of a Hutt epicure. The shuttle lifted off smoothly from the spaceport, the ship helmed by a team of Glusses a Nikto. The pale Nikto spoke to one another in a low, atonal language, but reported to Vago in Huttese. Mander did not doubt for a moment that the factorum was fluent in Nikto as well as in Basic, and did not doubt that she would rather sprain her tongue than speak it. The Hutt settled herself onto a great cushion along the back wall of the ship and busied herself with her datapad and goggles. It was as if Mander Zuma and his entourage had ceased to exist, having no more importance than the ale kegs. Mander watched the sprawl of the tract, the unlimited graveyard of Makante, extend out to the horizon as the shuttle rose. To Vago, he said,
"We appreciate benevolent Popara's willingness to continue negotiations in this matter, even after Toro Irana's passing."
Juba kanki chetagusha kospab, te bezga jedai stuka funta umdoale chuba higovisa eniki.
Vago responded without looking up from her pad, the droid translating.
You may thank efficient and diligent Vago for that kindness. Most of the negotiations were through her offices. The previous Jedi was fairly effective, and the offer tendered through him remains sufficient regardless of who offers it.
Rian looked at the hut.
Then you knew you knew the previous Jedi.
Vago looked up at Rian and blinked, her eyes magnified beneath the data goggles. She looked at Mander, as if expecting him to cuff an insolent subordinate for speaking out of turn. When the older Jedi did not, she huffed and muttered a reply in Huttese.
Yinhigwa bunta, yelova nimbotafa.
The droid translating.
He dealt through our agents, and I believe he met both of Popara's spawn at one time or another. He never met gentle and wise Popara, if that is what you are getting at. He was fairly effective, as I said.
She then returned to whatever she had on her datapad. The pale Nikto crew droning in their native languages as the ground dropped away beneath them. Eddie remained quiet, taking everything in. Rian and Mander watched the sky darken beyond the viewports and the tomb-dotted horizon turn into a planetary curve. There was a sparkle about the edge of the curve, which grew as they approached from a solitary pip of light into the dagger shape of an Ubrikian space yacht. The long, tapered bow cut like a knife blade among the stars, and the navigation spars bracketed the 4 rear engines. This was an air-breathing craft, and could land on a planet, should Popara Hudase ever deign to put common dirt beneath his belly. Even so, the ship was buffed to a reflective brilliance. Mander did not doubt that there were at least half a dozen turbo blasters concealed along the length of the bow, and that the shuttle was being tracked in the yacht's crosshairs as they approached. Vago snapped off her datapad and readjusted her goggles.
Imru utmiand,
She said, then translated in Basic.
the wandering outlander.
Then she barked an order in Huttese, and the shuttle nestled itself at the belly of the yacht. The hissing of seals confirmed the docking, and Vago led the group to the lift tube, the green droid fussing among the pale Nikto behind them, readying the cargo for transfer. The lift tube itself was opulent, with mirrored walls, mosaic crystal floors, and door irises made of musk wood. Vago seemed supremely disinterested in both her surroundings and her companions. The door hissed to a stop and spiraled open. The hatch revealed the hulking form of a Wookiee, who pushed his way into the tube without waiting for the others to depart. Rian and Mander stepped back, but Eddie held his ground, and the Wookiee was brought up short, towering over the smaller Bothan. The two locked eyes, and for that long moment, it looked like the Wookiee would attack. Mander could smell the alcohol on the Wookiee's breath, and realized that this was why they were bringing on more ale from Kashyyyk. Finally, the Bothan stepped away and let the Wookiee shamble in, away from the hut. For her part, Vago slipped past the drunken Wookiee and shepherded the others down the hall.
"One of young Zonos' companions,"
she said, without further explanation, biting off the words in Huttese.
"There will be others on board."
The end of the hallway was another great door of musk wood, this one with settings of silver. Another green 3PO unit, this one a bit more dented and battered, stood by the door. Apparently, thought Mander, it hadn't gotten out of the Wookiee's way in time.
"Announce us,"
Vago said in Huttese, and the protocol droid snapped to attention and hand-palmed the lock, the hatch irising silently outward. In Basic, the droid crackled.
His most mighty and powerful lord, his most wise and generous master, his most understanding and thoughtful leader, Popara Hutase, Popara the Hutt.
The room was dark in the manner that Hutts preferred, and wafted with the smells of smoke and slightly spoiled meat. The room itself was hut-sized, with 3 great alcoves along the other walls. All 3 were sumptuously furnished with rich tapestries and thick cushions. Mander noted briefly that the one on their left was empty, but the one on their right held a large young Hutt, laughing with a trio of Wookiees. Empty kegs and used hokum pipes were scattered about, but he had scant time to take that in, for Popara, the Hutt, occupied the central alcove. Mander knew that Popara was old, 9 centuries if the data disks had been correct, and had the wiliness of one who'd had to fight to survive every year. Hutts grew continuously throughout their entire lives, and Popara was enormous, his flesh marked with gray patches and old whitened scars of earlier conflicts. His eyes, though, were as brilliant as a morning on Yavin 4. 3 green-hued Twi'lek females in long, diaphanous robes dabbed him with perfumed sponges, and one of them broke from her ministries as the massive Hutt let out a low, almost animal growl.
"Shobaso Jedi,"
said the old Hutt, and the floor itself vibrated from the deepness of his voice.
"Wise Popara bids you welcome,"
said the Twi'lek, flashing sharpened teeth as she spoke.
"Dobra Grandio Malorda Popara Hutase,"
said Mander Zuma, wrapping his tongue around the difficult glottal stops of the Huttese.
"I am honored, my lord Popara Hutase."
The great Hutt made a deep, rumbling comment,
"Uyat,"
and the Twi'lek handmaidens giggled. The tallest one said,
"He says that your accent is horrible. He understands your language, and it is apparent you understand his. Shall I continue to translate for you and spare you further embarrassment?"
"Please,
said Mander.
for the sake of my companions, if not just clarity for me."
Another flash of sharpened teeth, and the Hutt made another deep comment.
"Tachobasanagula."
Puissant Popara declares that the offer the new Jedi Order has made for the coordinates of the Indrexu spiral is sufficient.
I am pleased that it is so, and appreciate Popara's willingness to part with it.
Mander nodded. Another deep rumble,
"Maya Hodruda Sawatila."
which the Twi'lek translated as,
Knowledge is like water, hard to contain once it has been unleashed. Though he notes that if you have a Bothan in your party, such knowledge will not be kept secret long.
She looked daggers at Eddie, who merely held up both palms in that
"Who, me?"
response that Mander had already become accustomed to. Mander started to say that the coordinates would help greatly, but the ancient Hutt let out a string of belches.
"Wabda Samugutu Bargon."
Sage Popara would, however, like to expand the deal we have agreed to. Mighty Popara bids you serve his family.
Here it comes.
said Rian under her breath. Mander ignored her.
Please continue.
A long string of hut-teas followed, sounding like a hot spring covered with mud.
Bu planito enregad sostiten CH03, kuma ke mila kila. Mi naga hopa huha.
The Twi'lek's forehead creased as she sought to remember it all.
Concerned, Popara notes that there is a plague on the planet Endregad, on the far side of the Indrexu spiral. The world is close to the corporate sector authority, and the CSA has placed it under quarantine, interdicting all ships in and out. The plight of the Endregadi has touched beneficent Popara's heart, and he wishes to make a gift of medicinal spice to the world. The CSA will have nothing to do with dealing with huts, and Popara regrets that their lack of appreciation may cause greater suffering. You will be provided a ship carrying the spice with the coordinates already locked into the computer.
Mander shot Rian a look at the mention of spice, and the spacer's eyes were wide. She started to say something, but was drowned out by the return of the Wookiee from the lift tube. The huge creature bearing a keg of ale underneath each burly arm and shouting a welcoming cry. The other Wookiees in the smaller hut's alcove responded in kind, and Mander took the opportunity to touch Rian on the shoulder and shake his head. The Factorum Vago might tolerate such an interruption, the Sheikh said, but it would be unlikely that Popara would, despite his stated benevolence. For his part, the older hut unleashed a caustic tirade of abusive gutturals at the Wookiees and the younger hut.
Bosca, nira desa slimo wermo, ichuta, batamidichu dajikava.
While the Twi'lek did not translate any of the exchange, Mander did not need to know Huttees to understand a parent berating a misbehaving child. The younger hut looked wounded, and he and the Wookiees settled into muttering, the new returnee pointing at Eddie in particular. Addressing the Twi'lek, Mander said,
On behalf of the Jedi and all caring and concerned peoples of the galaxy, we thank Popara for his generosity, but question his interest in but one planet, and inquire if there is not something else he needs us to be aware of.
The Twi'lek took a short, insulted intake of breath, but the ancient hut let out a deep sigh and spoke in a low tone to his translator.
Popara stukab quick spawner fisi, sonos saildi.
Who then addressed Mander.
Mighty Popara has seen 2 of his spawn grow to maturity. Zonos here is the elder of the 2.
She made an almost imperceptible head nod toward the hut and his Wookiee entourage.
His youngest child is Mika. Mika Hutese was on Endregad when the plague hit, and the CSA interdicted the world. There has been no word of him since then, and Popara, a caring parent, is concerned. The child is impetuous.
Mander nodded and said,
I understand his concern for one of a younger generation. We will be glad to see delivery of the medical supplies and determine what happened to your son.
We keep the ship.
Rian interrupted. Mander shot her a sudden, shocked look, but the older hut merely chortled.
Of course,
said the Twi'lek.
when gracious Popara expanded the deal, he meant to expand both the risk and the reward. The ship will be more than sufficient payment for this favor.
Popara the Hutt shifted forward on his cushions, his great girth hanging over the sides, towering over Mander and the others like an avalanche of flesh. His eyes softened, and for a moment he looked very, very old and alone. In a quiet voice he said, in Basic,
"Bring me back my son."
Then he settled back, and it was as if the moment had not happened. He was no longer a concerned father, merely a Hutt employer. 2 of the robed Twi'leks dabbed at him with scented fluids, and the third asked,
"Are you amenable to this addendum?"
"We will do our best,"
said Mander.
"Vago Gajali will see to your needs,"
said the Twi'lek, and the great Hutt closed his eyes to mere slits, a sign that the audience was at an end.
Barganu Noa Auyat,
Popara said, by way of benediction, translated as, "You will be rewarded,"
"Your thanks, the coordinates, and the ship are reward enough,"
said Mander. He turned, leading the 2 others through the musk wood doors. In the hallway, the H3PO unit directed them down to a meeting room. Rien leaned in close to Mander and said,
I told you that you need to drive a hard bargain with the Hutts.
"And I told you,"
said Mander.
"to let me do the talking."
The briefing room was better lit, but equally sumptuous, with raised ramps along one wall and a table and chairs more suitable for hominids in the center. Tasteful but opulent statues stood in niches along one wall. Rien examined one made of a rose-colored mineral depicting an incongruous hut emerging from a sweeping fountain of water. Rien reached out to touch a finger to the delicately carved foam. Vago, behind them, spat out a string of hut teas.
Sung Wonky Popara Pipcha Spauna Mika, Ganda Do Effigy Fufirfig.
The slightly dented green H3PO unit trailed after her like a moon in the hut's tidal wake. The droid said,
That statue was presented to mighty Popara to commemorate the successful birth of his youngest child, Mika. It is carved of a single emeraldite crystal. Such statuary would often be protected by virulent contact poisons, but that one has been detoxified.
Despite the non-toxic assurance, Rien pulled back her hand. Vago ignored her and moved over to the table, toggling a switch. A hollow display illuminated the schematics of a ship in the center of the table. It was shaped like a blunted arrowhead.
This vessel is waiting at landing pad X-13 on Makem Te,
said Vago through the droid.
It is being loaded as we speak.
Rian's attention was on the ship at once, the statue now forgotten.
That's a Suwantech TL-1200 freighter,
she said.
Dependable model, easily modded and customized. Can be handled solo, but flies better with a crew. 2 quad laser turrets. No custom work that I can see. Bit dinged up. It will do.
She nodded her approval to Mander.
Better condition than our last ship,
muttered Eddie, punching up a detailed schematic. Vago ignored both of them and handed Mander a datapad. The droid translated.
The medicinal spice will be loaded into the aft compartments. We don't know the specific details of the plague itself, so the spice is a broadband antisporant and pain suppressor.
Rian's head popped up from checking the ship's stats. Mander saw her jaw tighten slightly as she asked,
Does All-Wise Popara do a lot of trade in spice?
Vago looked over her data goggles at the Pantoran, then shrugged. The droid translated without comment.
Some, mostly medicinal. This is not the first time Great Popara has directed spice to handle a crisis. He also ships glitter stim when he chooses to speculate on the market.
Nothing. Worse?
Said Rian. She tried to keep the words light, but Mander could see the shadow of a disapproving frown. The Hutt Factorum's eyes narrowed, and the droid hesitated before translating.
No. Benevolent Popara chooses not to deal in slaves or in hard spices. He sees that there is enough misery in the galaxy without adding to it, and enough opportunity that he may gain wealth without contributing to that misery.
"Regardless,"
said Mander,
I think we should check the cargo before we get to Endrigod. It would be embarrassing to be found running contraband. The CSA in particular takes a dim view of spice smugglers.
Vago made a chuffing noise.
Understood,
said the droid, taking the data pad from the Jedi. It handed the pad to Vago, who punched a few more buttons and handed it back.
This clears you to access the crates and allows you to determine that they are what we claim them to be.
I am sorry if I sound untrusting,
said Mander. Vago's face was a blank, offering no more clue to her thoughts than the droid translator.
Not at all. Huts have a, shall we say, reputation in such things. One assumes that all Huts are criminals, just as all Bothans are spies.
Despite himself, Mander shot a glance at Eddie, who was poring over the ship's schematics and paying no apparent attention to any of them. Rian had joined him in investigating the plans.
Wise Popara is no fool,
Vago continued through the droid.
He has survived clan wars and assassination attempts and has found a position of strength in honesty. That is one reason to deal with the Jedi. Your order does not leap to conclusions quite as rapidly as others.
We try to keep open minds,
said Mander. Vago let out a snort and spoke in Hutt-Tese, holding up a hand to instruct the droid not to translate for the others. In Hutt-Tese, she said,
Pity that the CSA does not follow your example. We have hit a wall dealing with them. Zonos himself has taken over the negotiations and hasn't gotten much farther. In the meantime, Popara is distracted by his missing son and the business suffers. And that makes it my worry.
Said Mander in Basic.
You are not worried about Mika?
I worry about Popara and his lineage,
said Vago, choosing her words carefully. To Mander, it seemed that the Hutt wanted him to hear the words without going through a translator.
Benevolent Popara inspires loyalty and hopes to make that loyalty his gift to his children. Zonos is more typical of our species, but Mika has potential. I think that is why Popara is concerned.
You are not Hutasei clan, are you?
Asked Mander. He shot a glance at his two companions, but they were still looking at the schematics. He wondered idly if the Bothan understood Hutt-Tese.
You know, I was spawned of the Gejali family,
said Vago.
I am not familiar with that clan,
said Mander.
Because I am the only one in it,
said Vago, her face expressionless.
I said that Popara has survived numerous clan wars. The Gejalis were among the clans that confused openness for weakness and sought to defeat the Huttaseis. I am the survivor.
Mander raised an eyebrow.
And yet you work for him?
Vago let out a deep sigh, and for a moment the officious mask of the majordomo slipped.
I was but a child, and by rights and tradition, Popara could have ended my life. Instead, he brought me in and trained me as his own. I owe him much, and I want to see his true child return to him. It is difficult to explain to an Outlander.
We Outlanders understand more than you think,
said Mander.
One last question. Why was Mika on Endrigod in the first place?
From the corner of his eye, Mander noticed the Bothan's head come up a bit. Eddie was definitely listening now. Vago stiffened slightly and lowered her hand, allowing the droid to resume its translation, the air of familiarity gone once more.
Family business. One of our many holdings is Skydove Freight. The office is in Telbolin. the main colony on the planet. Mika was negotiating with geode miners, a small task, but Popara wants his children to understand the business. No one anticipated the plague or the quarantine.
Does the other son Zonos do small tasks as well?
Asked Mander.
Sometimes,
Said Vago through the droid, and then allowed herself a deep chuckle.
if they are not too complicated.
Will the CSA be expecting us?
No. We offered aid, but they turned it down.
Said Vago, again speaking in basic.
And they will not be expecting it this soon in any event, as a normal ship would have to go around the spiral. They will probably have at least one ship in orbit, and knowing the CSA, it's probably an old rust bucket with limited maneuverability, but enough ordnance to start a small war.
That would be expected with the corporate sector,
said Mander.
The coordinates should bring you in on the far side of the system. Prescient Vago recommends you run the blockade.
Translated the H03PO unit.
Use some of the medicine to bribe the local officials on the ground. If you need to, offer the remaining spice to the CSA by way of an apology later. The plague is truly secondary compared with the safety of a Hutasei scion.
Mander nodded. Popara may be described as benevolent, wise, and kindly, but the fate of a world would not matter next to Mika.
The Hutasei family leaves such matters to your discretion,
spoke the droid.
And you will need to be vaccinated, of course. Vago will summon a medical droid. If you need anything else, this unit will see to your needs.
Not waiting for the droid to finish, Vago Gajali slithered through the door.
Do we have enough information?
Asked Mander. Rien had been drawn into the schematics. The Bothan looked up and saw Mander pointing to the walls and to the droid. The Bothan nodded. Both of them assumed listening devices in the walls, and droids had big receptors.
A moment, Jedi,
said the droid.
There is someone else who would speak with you.
Vago will be back soon enough, but I think we are available,
said Mander.
Not the others, I'm afraid,
said the droid, looking at the Bothan.
Just the Jedi, for a moment.
Mander looked at Eddie, and the Bothan shrugged. The Jedi left Eddie and Rien going over the manifest and followed the droid across the hall. The warm room was dimly lit and stank worse than the grand meeting room. As soon as he entered, 2 Wookiees closed in behind him, blocking the door. 2 more flanked the elder son, Zonos, sprawled on a repulsor lift couch. The hairs on the back of Mander's neck stood up in a way that they had not in the presence of the older Hutt. The younger creature was in better shape, and although smaller, he seemed more malignant than his parent. His flesh had a bluish sheen, and even in this light, Mander could see that his eyes were red and rheumy. Too much of the Hakum.
Mighty Zonos, may his digestion always be sound,
said the droid, and the Wookiees behind them gave a laugh. Mander said nothing, and Zonos spat out a string of guttural noises, rounded by drink and almost impossible for Mander to translate. The droid put in,
Kindly Zonos wants to wish you good luck on your mission and tell you that he has no hard feelings over an outlander being chosen to aid the family. This is a dangerous situation, and Zonos wants you to know you have the support of the clan.
I appreciate kindly Zonos' concern, and that of Clan Hutasei,
said Mander. Another slurred garble, and the droid hesitated. One of the Wookiees smacked it across the back of the head, and it spat out.
Mighty Zonos wants you to know that even if you fail to find his brother or, Ardos forbid, are too late to save him, you will still have an ally among the Hootasay.
Zonos waited for the droid to finish, then managed a lazy, single wink. It laughed, and for a moment, Mander's blood ran cold. Then the Wookiees grabbed Mander by the shoulders and forcefully escorted both him and the droid back into the hallway.
That went better than usual,
said the droid, touching its head casing where the Wookiee had smacked it.
Let us get back to the others.
When they returned, both Ree-En and Eddie were rubbing their shoulders from the ball-shaped medical droid, administering a vaccination with a wicked-looking needle. Vago had returned as well.
Where did you disappear to?
Asked the Hutt in her native language.
Zonos wanted to talk to me,
said Mander, not waiting for the droid to translate. He figured that direct honesty was the best approach. Vago would cross-examine the droid in any event. The Hutt factorum harumphed and said in rapid Huttese,
Then I should make this a double dose. Exposure to Zonos is sometimes fatal. I have included information on Endragard, Mika, the disease itself, and what we know about the quarantine blockade.
Vago focused Mander's attention so that he did not notice the ball droid swooping around and quickly injecting him with a vaccine.
There should be no problems with the vaccine,
Vago said. She looked at the Bothan and added,
If there are any odd symptoms, contact us at once. The 3PO unit will see you are returned to the spaceport.
Eddie just growled at Vago's back as the Hutt left. The medical droid swept up behind her.
What just happened?
Said Ree-En.
Let's talk about it later,
said Mander.
Are you ready to go?
I've got a ship. I've got a cargo. And I've got a lot of questions to be answered,
said Ree-En.
Ready as I'll ever be. I've even named the ship.
Oh, what's that?
A new ambition,
said Ree-En with a smile.
Just ignore the fact,
added Eddie,
that the old ambition is now so much scrap. Otherwise it is not an auspicious name at all.
The one you hunt is named Mander Zuma.
said Coax to the ghostly image.
He is a Jedi of middling years and equally middling ability. Unlike most of his breed, he is surprisingly light in legends of daring that seem to accrete to these monks. He is, in short, a nondescript, hardly a challenge for one such as yourself.
Across from the Klatooinian hovered the image of Hedu, matriarch of the Bomu clan. She was a thin, wasp-like female, made even more ethereal by the holographic projection. Behind her lurked the flickering of others, shifting just at the edges of the image field. Relatives acting as bodyguards in the Rodian fashion. The Rodian matriarch let out a long, wheezing sigh. She contained more air than her phantom image suggested. Even so, she managed to exhale a question.
You are sure he is the one? The one who killed my clan children on Markham Ter?
I have confirmed it,
said Coax politely.
He made little point in concealing his identity, as the Jedi priests are wont to do. He apparently was the teacher of the other Jedi, the one you poisoned.
On your orders,
said Hedu.
On the orders of the Spice Lord,
said Coax, pulling her authorization around her like a cloak. The Rodian matriarch made a gurgling, chugging noise that Coax assumed was laughter.
Perhaps the Jedi hunts for his own vengeance.
Coax considered the Rhodians' worldview one of continual revenge against slights real and imagined, and thought that, in this case, it had merit.
Perhaps,
she said.
One of his companions, definitely so.
You have learned of his companions?
Said the Rhodian, her trumpet-belled antennae practically quivering.
A Panteran spacer, Rhianirana,
said Coax.
Sister to the Jedi we had killed.
The matriarch let out a long, angry hiss, and Coax wondered if the Rhodian leader had been dipping into her own private spice supplies.
Yes, that makes sense. The Jedi seeks vengeance and brings along others of a similar mind.
From everything that Coax had learned, that seemed unlikely, but she said nothing to dissuade the Rhodian.
And a Bothan. They were the ones who killed your clan children and burned your stocks.
Bothan?
Said the Rhodian and let out a string of curses.
You can always find one of them wherever there is trouble. Where are they now?
They are guests of a Hutt clan lord, aboard his yacht, in orbit over Makem Te,
said Coax. The matriarch stroked a few long hairs on her chin.
A carefully timed shuttle, loaded with explosives, could bring down any yacht.
No,
said Coax.
That will not do.
The matriarch seethed through the holographic connection.
The Jedi has killed my clan children. Nothing else should stand in the way of vengeance.
They are on a Hutt ship,
said Coax calmly.
Do you think that the protection that my lord offers is sufficient to protect you from a Hutt patriarch? It is bad enough that we have to worry about the Jedi Order. I do not want a Hutt mercantile clan prying into our business.
The ancient Rhodian rocked back, hissing in displeasure, and almost disappeared from the holographic view entirely. Coax wondered if the refusal to condone the bombing had given the old raptor an aneurysm. The Rhodian recovered herself, though, measuring her words as carefully as if they were grains of Tempest itself. She said,
What would you have us do?
I want your vow that you will not act against the Hutts, said
Coax.
As long as we have a chance against the Jedi and his allies,
responded the matriarch.
Fair enough,
said the Klatooinian. Her long fingers danced over the keys of the display.
They are making for the Endregad system in a Suwantek freighter. I am giving you the coordinates where they should appear.
Matriarch Hedu's eyes lit up at the sight of the figures, and Coax remembered that the ancient bird had been a spacer as well. She probably could outfly most of her clan.
I know these coordinates. Who is this Jedi that he walks such secret paths?
One favored by a Hutt consortium,
said Coax.
And for that reason, if for no other, you should tread carefully. Intercept their ship on the way in. Do not do anything that would bring the Hutts down on top of our profitable trade.
Hedu chugged a deep laugh again.
Because our Spice Lord does not want to share with the Hutts, I suppose.
You may suppose as you see fit,
said Coax, covering her lies with a thin smile. Someone to the right of the old woman handed her a datapad.
Endregad,
she said, scanning the information.
Core are all over it. Quarantined, interdicted, bad business.
All the more reason to catch their ship on the way in and leave nothing but debris for the corporate sector to find.
Coax glared at the matriarch with her good eye.
Are we agreed?
Matriarch Hedu of the Bomu clan pulled her snout inward, trying to physically stave off her acquiescence as long as she could. At last, she said,
We are agreed. I can have one of our raiders in that sector within the day. There will be no survivors.
Good,
said Coax, and reached to disengage the screen. Before she could do so, though, Hedu added quickly.
I have but one question.
Yes?
Said Coax, her own patience thin now. It was always the last question, the last bit of information that created new problems. Thinking of the late Dejaro, whose death was now laid at the feet of the Jedi, Coax realized it must be a genetic tick of the clan to ask one question too many. But the matriarch just smiled.
How did you discover all this information? Names, ship ID, coordinates? You must have some contacts among their hut patrons to know all this.
The Spice Lord is mighty,
said Coax.
With a great reach and powerful allies. Keep that in mind if you choose to go beyond my orders.
And with that, she broke the connection and the horrid, reed-thin Rhodian flashed out of existence. Coax let out a deep sigh. Would that all of her problems could disappear so easily? Tempest was now extant on 100 worlds, and while the Spice Lord had proven capable of meeting that great demand, there were always small matters to deal with. The local authorities, rival gangs, nosy interlopers trying to create or steal their own supply. 100 worlds, 100 tasks too small for the Spice Lord, but fit entirely for that most trusted servant, Coax, the one-eyed Clatooinian. She turned back to her guest in the small room, a deactivated 3PO unit, its metallic casing the color of the green evening sky on her homeworld was partially collapsed in one chair. Hours before, she had borrowed it from its Hutt-T's masters as it oversaw the loading of medical supplies for Endrigod. She had walked up to it, asked it for directions, and then spoke the override code that the Spice Lord had given her. The 3PO unit froze up for a moment, then entered into a fugue state. After that, it had easily allowed Coax to walk it to a quiet quarter and find out what was going on aboard Popara Hutase's ship. Then she let it collapse in the chair while she did business with Matriarch Hedu. She spoke another series of words now, and the droid reactivated, its eyes lighting up and its body suddenly shocking itself out of its dormant state.
I'm sorry,
it said, then repeated itself as its diagnostics kicked in.
I'm sorry. One moment. Something has gone wrong. Was I offline?
I think so,
said Coax.
I found you wandering near the landing bays about an hour ago. You seemed confused. Do you remember who you are?
I am an H3PO unit in service of the Hutase clan. I report to Vargo Gajali. I am charged with...
It paused for a moment and looked at Coax.
Do I know you?
I don't think so,
said Coax.
I brought you here and was just about to crack your housing and see if anything had worked loose.
She held up a pair of calipers as proof of her intentions.
Then you started up again on your own. You gave me a start.
Oh,
said the droid, adding that information to its data files.
I need to return to my post. They will be missing me.
I don't doubt they will,
said Coax.
Should I take you back to where I found you?
The droid tilted its head slightly, then shook it.
I need to return to my post. They will be missing me.
Gently, it rocked forward and rose, as if trying to regain its bearings. It waddled to the door in the shuffle that all protocol droids seemed cursed with. It turned at the last moment and said,
Thank you.
Do not mention it,
said Coax.
But do yourself a favor and have your master run a full scan on you. Some of your couplings may be loose.
The droid nodded and was gone, back to oversee the loading, its newly rebooted subroutine still trying to understand what had happened to it. Coax had no doubt that the droid would remember nothing. She had done this before, but the slightest glimmer of possible recognition made her uncomfortable. She went to the door and watched the droid move through the crowds of Swokes and other aliens, its movements getting more sure as it went. No, there would be no problem. One more of the 100 things that had to be handled on the behalf of Coax's lord. Perhaps there would be a day where it would all just move smoothly. The arrival of the pallets of pressed and cut drugs, the distribution, the credits, trickling back up on through a dozen false fronts. Perhaps the Spice Lord would not need a fixer, a repair woman, someone who had the ability and cold-hearted resolve to do what needed to be done to keep everything moving smoothly.
It would be nice if it happened even for one day,
Coax realized. But it was an unlikely dream, and the Klatwinian returned to her 100 other tasks.